All right, guys, welcome back to my channel, Costa Living. Thank you for tuning in. But today's Monday. Actually, it's Tuesday. I got my my first shot yesterday, and was kind of a little bit woozy, a little bit of a headache all day yesterday. So I'm a day late in putting this video together. But as I told you, we're going to do Monday matchups, and what I was going to do is kind of go back at the last week's videos and just kind of find some information that I think pertains to my channel and to my listeners. And I found 3 videos that I really like, that I kind of, the guys that I follow, and I wanted to share them with you and kind of give you my take on them, and just some little nuggets of information that's kind of hidden in them that I think is very important. So the first one is Grant Cardone. So many of you know who Grant Cardone is. If you listen to him, he's one of the first real estate billionaires. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Grant Cardone. There's some things that I really like about him, and there's some things that I really don't care for about him. I've been watching and following Grant, I don't know, for 4 or 5 years, kind of before he became super popular. If you watch a lot of his videos, a lot of his early stuff, yes, the guy is very successful. But if you watch him, he's almost like a little bit paranoid. And, it's not the way that I want to live my life. So if that's what becoming a billionaire does, it makes you all paranoid and think people are after you, not for me. I'll stick to my millions. But anyway, there's some things I do like about Grant Cardone, is just his drive and his kind of guerrilla marketing tactics that he does. You kind of will tend to see this with the older generation. That's why I like the older generation. They're kind of more of a no excuses, just go out and get it done. And so I'll tell you my thoughts on his video and some of the things that he does, and then we'll go into the other videos as well. But before I do, I can ask you a favor. Please help me triple D this video. We want to define this video by just smashing that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm, helps me out. And then, of course, we want to develop this channel, and you can do that by subscribing, and then also by leaving some comments down below of what you guys think. And most importantly, help me deliver this video by sharing it with someone who you think will benefit from this information. So let's get into this. So Grant Cardone, I don't know what it is about old people, but they have a tendency to want to share information. I'm one of them as well. I think as you get older, you tend to think of what kind of mark you're going to leave on society and just some information that you want to leave. So in this video here, he kind of talks about which, a lot of successful people come up to him and said, well, if you were young again, or if you met yourself when you were young, what would you tell yourself? What would you do over again? Or what advice would you give yourself?
So for all of you out there that wonder what Grant Cardone would do if he was 15, 12, 18, 20, 22, 28, 30, young and was just starting the game all over again. Look, number one, you need to dream big. I mean, you cannot dream big enough. I'm telling you, you can't dream big enough. You can do more than you're doing, but you can't do more than you're doing if you hang around with little thinkers. That could be your family members, could be your friends, could be people you're going to school with and hanging out with. Look, there's a time and a place to hang out with those people. Can't pick your family. I mean, they say you can't. I wonder sometimes if we don't actually do the picking and just show up there. But I'll save that for another conversation. So I'm giving you 3 little tips of what I would do right now. I would think big the whole time, and I would only surround myself with people that were willing to do big things, think big things. 2, stay away from the freaking goodies. They ain't that good. And number 3, pay the price today, okay? Learn to discipline yourself.
And so there's kind of 3 main topics that he hits on. And essentially what they are is, number 1, don't do drugs. He comes from a different background. He had his troubled past, had a really big issue with drugs. I unfortunately didn't have that issue, so it's not something I can kind of relate to. But I'm sure a lot of people can. Any kind of addiction kind of really side rails you from achieving your ultimate goals. The other thing that he talks about is really which is what I talk about in my Fatherly Advice Friday videos, essentially is the centers of influence, the people you surround yourself with and the things that you take on, movies you watch, YouTube channels you watch, just the information that you absorb and the people that you hang around with are going to affect the outcome. So if you don't like if the people you're hanging around with aren't where you want to be, then start hanging around different people. So the centers of influence, which is a big thing that I talked about in my Fatherly Advice videos on Friday. And thirdly, which is what I just talked about last week in my Friday video, which is pay the price, which is pretty much what I said is you have to show up and do the work. So it's kind of interesting that we pretty much had the same advice outside of the drugs, but it's just a video that I think is good. He kind of goes and rant and raves a little bit, but the key things, be aware of your centers of influence and you have to do the work. So that's my take on Grant Cardone. I think there's some good things there. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of him. If you want me to kind of elaborate, just drop a note down below and maybe we'll make a video on him as well. And then the second video is Grant Cardone. Not Grant Cardone. The second video is Ken McElroy. Now, I really like this guy. He actually came out with 2 videos this week. And I'll put links down below for both of them. I'll put down links down below for all these videos. I didn't really have room in the thumbnail to put him in there, but the other video was just it was a quick minute video, which essentially said the same thing that Grant said was the centers of influence, people you surround yourself with. Just a quick 1-minute video. I'll put that link down below as well.
Hey, it's Ken. What we're going to be talking about now is, who do you spend your time with and how can it change your life? So Jim Rohn said it best, you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Who are you listening to and who are you trying to be? There's people who give you energy and there's people that take energy away. And what I did is I kind of moved my way into what I would consider to be more positive circles. And I found that those circles, those people are generally, they're kind of a safety nets when you need them. So what I've always tried to do is hang out with people that don't necessarily need anything from me, but they want to discuss and they want to be better themselves.
But this video here that I want to review, to me it's a great video. So the thing with this video, it's a little bit longer, it's about 35 minutes, but it's great real estate industry information. And so there's some key points in here that he mentions, and I'll kind of play those clips for you. There's kind of like a 2 or 3 minute segment in here, which one of his callers or listeners or members wrote in, which essentially is, how do you make money off of debt? How do you build your wealth from debt? So I'll play that video for you, and you'll kind of see his response, which is a great response. And it's actually something that I'm in the process of doing right now too. I think, Ken is, if you don't know who Ken McElroy is, I should have told you this from the beginning. Basically, he's one of Robert Kiyosaki's advisors, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, guru.
Okay, great. And then Philip had a really good question. He said, can you talk more about building wealth through debt? So how could, these low interest rates help somebody to build wealth?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So here's the way you need to look at this. When the rate goes down, they're basically saying, come get more money. That's essentially what it is. And when the economy's super hot, then that's when they increase rates. So the rate, you got to look at the rate as like a governor on an engine, or a gas pedal. So that's the way the rates work. So basically when rates go down, they're basically saying borrow more money, make more investment, hire more people, spend more money, whatever that might be. That could be at a department store, it could be on a car, it could be on all kinds of things. So how you make it how you turn that into wealth is that you buy an appreciating asset. So, and you have to also look at inflation. So the Federal Reserve has also said that their targeted interest rate, at least in the United States, is 2, but they kind of loosen that up. It's going to be a little more than 2. If you go back and look, it's been all over the map. It's been in the 3s, and I think a lot of people think that it's probably significantly higher. But you have to take a look at inflation as well as part of this question. So you're borrowing that money at these low rates. You're actually borrowing that money at the rate of inflation. Almost.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost free money. I know that sounds bizarre to think about, but think about this. If you have $200,000 in the bank and you also have a $2,000 mortgage, let's say, you're just looking at the two, the $200,000 that's sitting in savings is actually devaluing based on inflation. It's actually still 200, but your purchasing power is less as inflation hits. And conversely, if you borrow that $200,000 and put it, let's say you invest it into a $300,000 mortgage or a house with the $200,000 being the mortgage, then now what you've done is you've borrowed at inflation and you've parked it at a fixed rate, and you're actually making money based on the appreciation of the house.
Right. So to break it down a little bit, so if your mortgage is at 3% and inflation's growing at around 2 to 3%, all of that interest is kind of
it's washed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's using other people's money or bank money or whatever, depending on how you can borrow it, and it's basically covering inflation.
Right.
So what you want to do is the other side of that though is you have to be using it for appreciating assets. So if you're going to go out and buy a $100,000 truck that's going to be worth, 80 in 2 or 3 years, then, that's not necessarily working for you.
Right.
But if you're buying an asset that's actually paid for by someone else through rent or you're actually you have to buy it right, and you have to make sure that it's managed right, and you have to make sure that cash flows. That's why it's like a covered cash flow play,
Right.
Basically using bank money and fixing the rate. So one of the things that hurts people right now for this interest rate the lowering is it disrupts savers. Right.
And he is strictly multi-unit, big investor. So he buys a lot of the, 20, 30, 40, $50 million apartment complexes kind of throughout the country. Does a bunch of syndication deals. Robert Kiyosaki invested in him, and a lot of other investors invest in him as well. But anyway, so he's really got a pulse on the larger market, and in the apartment complexes, he's involved with a lot of different organizations. So I really like his information. He does his homework. So if you are interested in more real estate stuff, I'd say check him out. He just has some great information out there about the markets and where trends are going. Obviously, there's a lot of micro markets, so you can't just take the market. Oh, the market's up, the market's down. No, there's a lot of micro markets. So even within, Portland market, a lot of people are leaving Portland, going, out. A lot of people are leaving California because of the business and the politics. They're leaving California. They're coming up to Oregon, going to Arizona. And so you have these different trends, but it's even, you can't even say all of California or all of Portland or all of Arizona. It's the sub markets within there. So check out his stuff. But for this video about how to get rich off of debt, this is a great thing that he covers here. So if you've watched some of Ken's recent videos within the last 30 days, he does a lot of kind of where the market's going, and he feels that the real estate market's going to crash because of the foreclosures, the forbearances, the rent, where you can't kick anybody out of your properties. And so all these things are going to kind of come to fruition in his videos are saying third or fourth quarter. I agree with a lot of what he says. I do think the market is going to have a correction, although I don't think it's going to be that soon. I don't think it's going to be this year. I think we're about 1 or 2 years away from it. mainly because I spent a lot of time driving around looking at different markets. And I know like our market in Vancouver, Washington is super hot right now. I mean, things are going over asking, multiple offers. There's just no inventory. So even though the foreclosures may come up in 6 months, it's going to take a while for that inventory to really affect the market. And then, I just got back from Arizona. Same thing in Arizona. We're looking at getting a new house built out there. They're 10 months out. So even if I sign now, I'm still not going to be done for 10 months. So I think the demand is so high that it's going to take a while for that to have an effect. And I think we're looking about a year to 2 years. Now, with that said, I agree with what he's saying there, and pulling some money out of your equity, try to get some equity working for you. Be smart about this. Be sure things cash flow when you buy them. There's not a whole lot of deals out there right now because everything's going over asking. So you got to be sure the numbers make sense. But if you can and you can afford it, it might be a good idea to have some money and just park it aside and wait for a year or 2 years. And that's what I plan on doing. Now, the third video here are the two Kevins. I really like Ask Kevin. The guy is just a beast when it comes to videos. I did a review on him before on one of his other real estate videos where I kind of really went into detail of his video, and I took his 15-minute video and made it 30 minutes, but it was really a crash course on real estate, what to look for, what to do. So there was a lot more information that I added to it. You can take a look at that review. I'll put it up here. But with these two Kevins, this is actually a short video. You should watch it. But the main clip here, Kevin says something right at the end that I really took out. He's buying luxury homes. He's looking at condos at $3 to $4 million range for luxury condos that have views on top stories. That's kind of a different arena, just a different ball game. That's not my audience. I'm looking for people that are trying to find their first home or their first rental property, and I doubt very many of you are looking for $3-4 million condos. But there was something that he said, and I'll play that for you.
There's one I'm looking at here. I was just examining the data on it last week. The last time it's a 3-bedroom, 2,800 square foot condo. There's probably 30 of them in the building that are identical. And the only difference is what floor they're on. Because if you clear obstructions, you generally get a 25% premium. And so on the twilight floors where you're half instructed, it's a perfect market in that sense. Last time one of these condos traded, it traded for $3,150,000. The owner of one of them now with an obstructed view is trying to get $4.6 million. Now that's not going to trade. That's not going to trade, and it hasn't traded. And so what happens is it sits there, and I'm now speaking about the whole index. These condos sit on the market for generally up to 18 months. People that put stuff on the market are willing to wait a year and a half to see if somebody hits the bid. Sure. And if it doesn't happen, the prices start to fall. So where we're at now is we're 3 months into the wait and see, because the volume of trading is slowing at that high end, which always tells me potential 20% correction coming, but you just don't know when or what the black swan event is going to be that triggers it. Because if you look at the history of Boston, Miami, Austin, you get tremendous volatility, particularly Miami. There's no market more volatile than Miami. And so, if you're an indexer like I am in buying multiple units potentially, you really want to catch it on when it starts going down. And we haven't seen that yet. So I got to wait 12, 18 months.
Now, another key thing with real estate is when the real estate market is doing really well, everything is selling at every different price point. And the first things that kind of get hit are the luxury markets. And so people tend to stop buying luxury homes because that's the super wealthy. And if the super wealthy aren't spending money, it tends to trickle down a little bit. So if the super wealthy aren't spending money on luxury homes, then the next category of investors start tightening up a little bit too. So, I do watch the luxury market just in that sense of trying to see, it's kind of the precursor of the market coming down. And so you have this issue with both Ken and Kevin talking about, when the rates start going down, it means that the economy is cooling down. And so the government wants to heat it up a little bit and not, slow down too much. And so they lower the interest rates. And then also you have just the market of the pricing of the homes start coming down a little bit. So there's some things coming down the pike here, and these are some great videos, great takes. Hopefully, you kind of agree with some of these things here, that, the crash is around the corner, but when it's going to come, who knows? It could be a year, it could be 2 years. There's no inventory right now. And obviously basic economics, when your demand outpaces your supply, the price goes up. And there's a lot more demand than supply right now. I think as more and more people get vaccinated, more and more people are comfortable having people come in their homes, as the forbearance catches up to people and they got to start making their payments again. There's a lot of hidden stuff in there too, where they're going to have to make up their escrow accounts. They're going to have to make up the lost payments that they do. There's going to be a small percentage that can just add it to the back end, but there's going to be some that can't. So I think that's going to add some supply to the marketplace as well. So when all these things kind of come and that supply starts increasing, you're going to start to see a drop in the pricing. So where that is and how big of an impact that's going to have, who knows? We'll have to see. But just kind of protect yourself. And again, if the numbers make sense, as long as you're buying a house and you can afford the payment and you're fine with it, it doesn't matter what the price does in the short term. Again, my whole philosophy is long-term investing. So if you're buying something and you're going to stay in it or keep it for 10, 15 years, what it does in the next 3 or 4 years is really irrelevant. If you can rent the property and it makes sense and it cash flows, you can afford the property with your job, then you're fine. It's when you start losing your job and you've kind of overstretched yourself, you relied on 2 incomes to qualify, and now you lose an income, that's where you can get into trouble. So anyway, just wanted to share this information with you. This is my Monday matchup. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you wanted me to maybe elaborate, or maybe some things you want me to cover next time, or if you kind of like this format. And next week we'll do another review of this week's videos. Let me know, and just kind of understanding the real estate market and how it affects your everyday life as far as investing, and understanding your largest asset is your real estate. So understanding how the real estate is going to be affected by the market, how the rates are going to affect the market, all of this stuff is just, it's a cost of living. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.